For generations, canned tomato soup has been more than just a quick meal. It was the secret ingredient behind countless family recipes, used as a base for casseroles, pasta sauces, even Sunday chili. Back in the day, grabbing a can from the pantry meant convenience without sacrificing quality. But times have changed. Many of the brands we grew up trusting have quietly lowered their standards. Instead of ripe, full-flavored tomatoes, they've switched to concentrates, powders, and fillers. The comforting balance of tangy and savory has been replaced by overwhelming salt, added sugar, or preservatives that stretch the shelf life but shrink the taste. What was once a reliable kitchen shortcut now leaves many people disappointed, whether you're heating it up for a quick bowl or trying to build a homemade dish around it. And yet, some brands still respect the tradition, using real tomatoes, cleaner recipes, and flavors that actually hold up when you cook with them. So today we're breaking down the canned tomato soups you should absolutely avoid, and the few that are still worth keeping in your pantry. Avoid number 1, Campbell's condensed tomato soup. If there's one canned tomato soup that almost every American household has seen, it's Campbell's condensed tomato soup. The iconic red and white label has been sitting on pantry shelves since 1897, and for decades it felt like part of our national identity. Many families relied on it not only for a quick meal, but also as an ingredient for bigger dishes. My grandmother, for example, used to stir a can of Campbell's into her homemade pasta sauce when she needed to stretch a meal for a table full of kids. Back then, it worked, affordable, dependable, and surprisingly flavorful. But the truth is that was then. Today, opening a can of Campbell's often feels like opening a can of salty red water. The flavor has flattened, the texture is thin, and instead of the bright tang of real tomatoes, you get a strange mix of sweetness and artificial aftertaste. Much of this comes from cost-cutting, using concentrates and fillers instead of ripe tomatoes, relying heavily on sugar and sodium to mask the loss of quality. The real shame is how versatile this soup once was. Small diners across America even used it as a base for chili or as a quick tomato sauce substitute. A friend of mine who runs a mom-and-pop cafe told me he stopped using Campbell's years ago because the consistency became too unpredictable. One batch would be okay, he said, and the next would taste like watered-down ketchup. That kind of inconsistency makes it impossible to rely on, whether you're feeding a family or running a kitchen. So while Campbell's may still tug at your nostalgia, it no longer delivers the comfort it once promised. High sodium, weak tomato flavor, and declining consistency make it a brand better left in the past. Question: do you still buy Campbell's out of nostalgia, or have you moved on to other brands for your cooking and comfort food needs? Avoid number 2, Great Value, Walmart store brand. Great Value that is Walmart's flagship store brand, and it exists for one reason: price. On the shelf, its tomato soup often costs far less than name brands, making it attractive for families trying to stretch their grocery budget. The logic seems simple. Why pay more when you can grab a cheaper can that looks almost identical? The issue, however, lies in what gets compromised to achieve that low price point. Great Value tomato soup relies heavily on bulk-sourced tomatoes that are often processed into concentrate or powder before being rehydrated for mass production. That process strips away the fresh acidity and sweetness of ripe tomatoes, leaving behind a base that tastes thin and one-dimensional. To cover up those shortcomings, the recipe leans on preservatives and salt. This makes the soup shelf-stable for long periods, but at the expense of real flavor. What you end up with is a product that fills the stomach, but doesn't deliver the comfort people expect from tomato soup. It's functional, not enjoyable. Another factor is versatility. Many consumers buy tomato soup not only to eat on its own, but to use as a cooking ingredient, whether in casseroles, pasta sauces, or quick stews. Great Value struggles here as well. Its watery consistency and flat taste don't blend smoothly into recipes, and instead of enhancing dishes, it can actually dull them. For anyone using it as a kitchen shortcut, the result often requires extra seasoning and add-ins just to make it acceptable. Price is undeniably appealing, but the trade-off is clear. Great Value tomato soup sacrifices quality for affordability, and in doing so, it fails at both roles: unsatisfying as a standalone soup and unreliable as a cooking ingredient. Question: when it comes to canned soup, do you think saving money is worth it if the flavor and quality fall short? Or is this one product where cutting corners just doesn't work? Avoid number 3, Progresso Tomato Basil. For years, Progresso marketed itself as the Italian-inspired alternative to ordinary canned soup. Their tomato basil variety promised something more refined, a taste of classic Mediterranean kitchens packed into a convenient can. I still remember the first time I saw a family friend proudly serve Progresso tomato basil with toasted bread, saying, "Poi, it feels like a little trip to Italy without leaving the house." Back then, it was something different, and people appreciated that touch of herbs and richness. But the problem today is that the promise no longer matches the product. Instead of fresh tomato brightness and the gentle aroma of basil, what you often get is a heavy-handed saltiness that overwhelms everything else. The basil tastes strangely artificial, more like dried powder than fresh leaves. And the tomatoes? They lack the acidity and depth that makes a tomato soup truly satisfying. It's almost as if the recipe has been engineered in a lab to survive long on a shelf rather than deliver an authentic meal. One woman I know used to use Progresso tomato basil as a shortcut for her pasta bake. It worked for a while, but over time she noticed she had to keep adding her own garlic, onions, and even canned diced tomatoes just to make it taste decent. Eventually she gave up and went back to making her own sauce from scratch, saying it was faster than fixing the soup every time. That's a telling sign when a product that's supposed to save you time ends up costing you more effort. The bigger disappointment is the price. At over $2 a can in most stores, Progresso positions itself as premium. But if you're paying more for soup that tastes flat and overly salty, is it really premium? For many, the answer is no. So while Progresso tomato basil may look appealing on the shelf, it delivers far less than it promises. Quick question. Have you noticed how much saltier Progresso soups have become, or do you think the flavor has held up over the years? Avoid number 4, Campbell's Chunky Hearty Tomato. When Campbell's first launched its Chunky line, it was marketed as the bold upgrade from their classic condensed soups. The hearty tomato variety promised thick pieces of tomato, a robust base, and enough substance to actually serve as a meal, not just a side. For a while, that reputation stuck. People believed they were getting a richer, more filling alternative. But over the years, the formula has shifted. One major issue is ingredient sourcing. Instead of relying on vine-ripened tomatoes, much of the soup now comes from tomato paste and reconstituted puree. That switch saves money in production, but strips away the natural acidity and brightness that fresh tomatoes bring. The result is a base that tastes flat, almost industrial, rather than rich and layered. Another factor is the heavy sodium load. To make up for the loss of natural flavor, Campbell's leans hard on salt. A single can can pack more than half of the daily recommended sodium intake, leaving you thirsty and bloated rather than satisfied. It's a clear trade-off, shelf life and cost efficiency over actual nutritional balance. Texture is also a weak point. The brand advertises hearty chunks, but what you actually get are small, mushy bits that don't hold up after heating. Advances in mass production have made consistency across millions of cans more important than quality. In other words, it's engineered for stability, not taste. Add to this the price point. The Chunky line is positioned as a premium option, yet the cost rarely matches the eating experience. Paying extra for a soup that feels watered down and overly salted, hardly qualifies as value. So while Campbell's Chunky Hearty Tomato may still look hearty on the label, what's inside the can tells a different story. A soup shaped more by cost-cutting and shelf stability than by real flavor or nutrition. Question: do you think big brands like Campbell's prioritize convenience and profit over taste? Or have you found some of their chunky soups still worth it? Avoid number 5, Healthy Choice Tomato Soup. On the surface, Healthy Choice seems like the smarter pick. The brand positions itself as the better-for-you option, marketed toward people who want to eat clean without giving up convenience. Labels highlight words like healthy, light, and balanced, which makes shoppers believe they're choosing a safer alternative to traditional canned soups. But once you look past the packaging, the product doesn't fully deliver on its promise. One of the biggest issues is dilution. To keep calories low, the formula is thinned out, resulting in a watery texture that lacks the depth you'd expect from a tomato-based soup. Instead of the rich, tangy punch of fresh tomatoes, you often get a bland liquid that tastes closer to lightly flavored broth than real tomato soup. Another concern is the ingredient list. While Healthy Choice does reduce fat and calories, it compensates with additives and stabilizers that don't exactly scream natural. The sodium content, though marketed as lower than competitors, is still high when compared to truly fresh or homemade alternatives. So while the brand leans on health-focused messaging, the reality is that you're trading one problem for another. Less cream and fat, but more processing. Then there's the versatility factor. Many people expect tomato soup to be flexible enough to use in recipes, but Healthy Choice's thin consistency makes it almost useless as a cooking base. Try adding it into a casserole or pasta dish, and it simply disappears without contributing flavor or body. That defeats the purpose of stocking it in the pantry for multi-use convenience. The bottom line, Healthy Choice tomato soup is more about branding than substance. It sells the image of wellness but struggles to back it up with flavor, texture, or nutritional advantage. Interactive question. Do you trust healthy labels on packaged foods? Or do you think they're mostly a marketing trick to make processed products seem better than they are? Not every canned tomato soup is a disappointment. While some brands have cut corners and lost their way, a few still hold on to quality and deliver what people actually want: flavor, balance, and reliability. These are the soups that not only taste good on their own, but also work beautifully as ingredients in homemade dishes. Let's take a look at the brands that are actually worth keeping in your pantry. Worth trying: number 1, Amy's Organic Tomato Bisque. Amy's has built its reputation since the late 1980s as a pioneer in organic, vegetarian, and non-GMO foods. Unlike many legacy brands that have diluted their formulas over time, Amy's has held firmly to its founding principles: real ingredients, minimal processing, and recipes that taste closer to homemade than mass-produced. Their organic tomato bisque is one of the best examples of that commitment. What sets it apart is the quality of the tomatoes themselves. Amy's sources organic tomatoes that are harvested at peak ripeness, giving the soup a natural brightness and acidity that you can taste in every spoonful. Instead of masking weak ingredients with excess salt or sugar, the flavor is balanced with cream and herbs, creating a smooth texture that feels rich without being heavy. It's a far cry from the thin, salty broths you find in cheaper alternatives. Nutritionally, Amy's Tomato Bisque also stands out. While it's not a diet product, it avoids the pitfalls of excessive sodium and artificial additives. That makes it a solid option not only for quick comfort food, but also for anyone trying to keep their pantry stocked with items they can feel good about eating. Versatility is another strength. Many home cooks use Amy's Tomato Bisque as a base for pasta sauces or baked dishes, and it holds up beautifully. Instead of disappearing into the recipe, it enhances it, adding depth, creaminess, and a tangy tomato backbone. That makes it just as valuable for cooking as it is for pouring straight into a bowl. At around $3.04 a can, Amy's is more expensive than mainstream competitors. But the trade-off is quality and peace of mind. You're not just buying soup, you're buying consistency and better ingredients. Interactive question. Would you pay a little more for an organic soup that works both as comfort food and as a solid cooking ingredient? Or do you prefer to stick with cheaper, mass-market options? Worth trying: number 2, Pacific Foods. Organic tomato soup. Pacific Foods may not have the long history of Campbell's or Progresso, but since the 1980s, it has steadily built a reputation as a brand that values simplicity and natural flavor. Their organic tomato soup is a standout, packaged in a carton instead of a can, something that not only reduces the metallic aftertaste, but also signals a different approach to freshness and storage. The strength of Pacific's tomato soup comes from its ingredient list. Instead of concentrates or powders, it uses organic tomatoes blended with herbs and spices in a way that feels closer to a homemade recipe. The texture is smooth yet substantial, with enough body to feel satisfying without turning overly heavy. Unlike so many mass market soups, you don't need to drown it in salt or extra seasoning to make it enjoyable. One of the key advantages here is balance. The soup delivers that natural tomato tang while staying mellow enough to pair well with grilled cheese, pasta, or casseroles. For home cooks, this versatility is a game changer. Add it to a lasagna base, stir it into risotto, or use it as a gentle sauce starter. The flavor holds up without overwhelming the dish. Nutritionally, Pacific keeps sodium and additives lower than mainstream brands, which appeals to people looking for cleaner options without sacrificing taste. And while it usually costs around $3 to $4 per carton, the value feels fair considering the higher quality of the ingredients and the absence of fillers. What makes Pacific Foods unique is its consistency. Whether you're enjoying a bowl on its own or using it as part of a larger meal, you know exactly what you're going to get. Reliable flavor that doesn't feel processed or artificial. Question: do you prefer the traditional convenience of canned soup, or would you choose carton-packaged options like Pacific if it means fresher taste and better balance? Worth trying number 3, Trader Joe's Organic Tomato and Roasted Red Pepper Soup. Trader Joe's has built a cult following by offering unique twists on everyday staples, and their organic tomato and roasted red pepper soup is a perfect example. Unlike traditional tomato soups that can taste one note, this variety adds fire-roasted red peppers to the mix, giving it a smoky depth and natural sweetness that stand out from the competition. It feels less like a canned shortcut and more like something simmered in a kitchen with care. One of the brand's biggest strengths is ingredient quality. Trader Joe's uses organic tomatoes and peppers, avoiding unnecessary fillers and artificial flavors. The result is a soup with real character, bright, tangy tomato notes balanced by the richness of roasted pepper. The smooth texture makes it easy to enjoy on its own, but it's also robust enough to play a role in more creative dishes. That versatility has made it a favorite among home cooks. Many people use it as a quick pasta sauce starter, a base for roasted vegetable stews, or even as a dip for sandwiches. One of its most popular pairings is with grilled cheese, where the roasted pepper flavor elevates a classic comfort combo into something special. At about $3 per carton, it's reasonably priced for the quality it delivers. Compared to big-name brands that rely heavily on salt and preservatives, Trader Joe's version feels like genuine value. You're not paying extra for marketing slogans, you're paying for flavor that actually holds up. This soup has become a quiet pantry essential for many families, bridging the gap between convenience and quality. It proves that a ready-made soup can still feel fresh and exciting when brands invest in real ingredients. Question: have you tried Trader Joe's tomato and roasted red pepper soup? And if so, do you enjoy it more as a simple bowl or as a versatile cooking base? Canned tomato soup has been part of American kitchens for more than a century, first as a quick, comforting meal, then as a base for countless family recipes. But as we've seen, not every brand has kept that promise. Some, once beloved, have slipped into cutting corners with concentrates, fillers, and way too much salt. Those are the cans you're better off leaving on the shelf. At the same time, a few brands still honor what tomato soup is supposed to be: simple, flavorful, and dependable. Whether you're warming up on a cold night or building a pasta bake for your family, these are the soups that remind you convenience doesn't have to mean compromise. So the next time you're standing in the soup aisle, remember this breakdown. Choosing the right brand can make the difference between a forgettable meal and one that actually feels nourishing. Now I want to hear from you. Which canned tomato soup do you keep in your pantry, and do you use it just for a quick bowl or as part of your cooking? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more brand deep dives, and hit the bell so you never miss what's coming next. Because even when it comes from a can, your food should still taste real.